And joining me now is Tom Mulcair, our CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader. Tom, thanks as always for joining us, especially
Good to be with you,
with
Roger.
the week that it's been for Trudeau and the Liberals. It's been a rough one. Your thoughts as we kind of start to wrap up the week, but we still may be looking at a cabinet shuffle.
Yes, I think that that's inevitable. There are some doubling ups that have occurred that just are impossible to manage. But I'd say it's also been, Roger, a rough week for Canadians because they're wondering, who's in charge? Where's the government? You have good ministers like Anita Anand who were just pitched, when Pablo Rodriguez decided that he was no longer going to be a minister, she was just given transport as if transport was just sort of an afterthought in the second largest country in the world. And so we've got any number of those things. Oh, you take defense on top of your other budget. Right. So nothing's working right now. And I found it bizarre, frankly, that it was Dominic LeBlanc who was announcing that Mark Carney was no longer part of the equation. But I think that Mr. Carney will have a lot to say about the future of the party. He certainly was wise to step back from the train wreck that Justin Trudeau wrought on his whole political formation on Monday. And the debacle around Chrystia Freeland is something he's going to wear for a long time on many different levels. He boasted as of last week what a great feminist he was. And if you go through the Jody Wilson-Raybould's and the Jane Philpotts and now Chrystia Freeland's, he has obvious difficulty dealing with powerful women. And she was his most loyal, political companion. She was there for everything for him, totally loyal, so through thick and thin. And he contrived and he told her on Friday that he was going to dump her from cabinet, or at least he was going to dump her from finance, the day after she would deliver her fall economic statement, and that he was going to make her the Minister of U.S.-Canada Relations, which is a ministry without a department, with no budget, with no staff. And so she saw right through it. She knew she was being dumped, and it probably because she had gone, or some of the people around her had gone public with grave reservations about Trudeau's most recent gimmick, his stunt involving an 8-week break for the GST and handing out checks to people who earn $150,000 a year. So she was right to pull back from that, and maybe she's actually given herself a little bit of space should she decide one day to run for the Liberal leadership. But with regard to Carney and Dominic LeBlanc just sort of blankly stating that, Carney had come on board as one of Trudeau's key advisors. You can be sure that he wanted nothing to do with this absolute mess, and he was very wise to step back from it. Carney is so close to Freeland, he's actually the godfather of one of her kids. So you can be sure that once he saw this mess, he just sort of, I'm not going to touch this. And so the Liberals lost their best chance to have somebody with incredible stature and credibility in Mark Carney to at least come into the breach. And now, who knows? It's going to be, a cast of minor characters probably fighting it out to replace Trudeau. Because I don't think, Roger, to cut to the chase, I don't think that Trudeau can stick around. I don't think that's plausible.
No, and the fact he hasn't spoken at all this week, I think a lot of people are questioning that. Can that hurt him any more than where he is in the polls? Can he sink any further?
Well, you can't sink much further in the polls, but look at British Columbia. There was a by-election in a Liberal federal riding in British Columbia this week. The Liberals won the last election there. The Conservatives got 66% of the vote in a multi-party battle. 66%, Roger. The Liberals were down to 16%, and the NDP almost wiped out. I think they got something like 11 or 12%. So it should have been a lesson to the Liberals after they had lost that key St. Paul's riding in Toronto, after they lost the La Salle-Verdun-Émard in Montreal. These were all strong Liberal ridings. And yet Mr. Trudeau seems immune to it. He thinks he's going to somehow ride this through. He's capable of the best and the worst. He's done some very good things. His relationship with First Nations has been outstanding, for example. But on the economy writ large, it's been his downfall. So thank goodness he had Freeland there at least saying, well, we're going to tell the public we've got guardrails and anchors. But when Trudeau insisted on blowing through those, hey, Roger, we had a more than 50% increase in the already announced massive debt of $40 billion for this year. Okay. We were running that deficit of $40 billion already, and they added more than 50% to it. They don't know how to manage. They've increased the size of the civil service massively. It's been bulimic. But because it's so inefficient and badly run, they give billions and billions of dollars of contracts to outside companies to do the work that the civil servants were supposed to be doing. It's just falling apart. And I know it sounds like the theme that Poilievre has been driving, that things are broken. But when you look at it objectively and based on experience, I can tell you, I've been in government for a whole long time. I've never seen anything run quite this badly. But I think the answer was in Bill Morneau's book. He said that everything turned around Trudeau, everything centered on him, whether it was the Prime Minister's office or the whole Privy Council office. In other words, Roger, we didn't have Mr. Trudeau running a government for Canadians. He wanted the Canadian government run for Justin Trudeau to make sure of his advancement. Okay. And that's the final scene on the stage. I think that's what Canadians finally saw.
All right. On that note, I know we could talk more about this. Tom, always appreciate hearing from you. Thank you, sir.
Take good care, Roger. All the best.
Tom Mulcair is our CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader.